CHP is chasing a reckless driving suspect. This started in the Cajon Pass on the 15, but it's now in L.A. County. And we understand, well, look at how fast this car is going. Yeah. You're looking at the numbers on our screen there, but Desmond Shaw, we know that could be a little exaggerated, but they were driving at speeds of 100 miles or more.
Yeah, we are up at triple digits right now, Pat. Look at this. In the center divider, no less. Southbound on the 605. Came away from the 210. I'm really worried this driver is going to lose control and crash into someone going so fast, even though they are in a relatively capable car here, a BMW, wanted for reckless driving and definitely driving like it. So, again, as you said, Pat, this started off the southbound 15 around Glen Helen. So at the bottom of the Cajon Pass, then transition westbound 210. That's where we picked it up in the Irwindale area and just flying along since we got overhead. They were acting at least a little bit more rationally earlier, maybe about 70 or 80 miles an hour, but now we are pedal to the metal, 100 miles an hour, southbound 605, not afraid to go into that center divider where there's all kinds of junk that could come up and give this person a flat tire or cause a crash, doing whatever they can to try to evade CHP, who has their helicopter overhead as well. So from the ground and the air, it's CHP southbound 605 towards the 10 freeway, Pat.
Yeah, that is really dangerous. Oh, look at that. That's so dangerous right now. Des, are CHP close behind this vehicle, or have they given him some room?
They were pretty close behind until he started driving into the center divider, and then they weren't going to follow him there. They kind of got stuck behind a couple of other cars. So I'll just widen out here for a second. I think they are really, there's a CHP unit there on the right-hand shoulder monitoring everything. So we'll see if they are able to get back into place to get right behind the suspect. But, you know, they do have the helicopter overhead with some assistance from Ontario PD's helicopter as well. I believe CHP has since relieved them at this point. So, again, starting in the Inland Empire, but up to, wow, these speeds for real, 120 miles an hour, 110, 120. You see just how quickly going by that traffic, close to double the speed limit right now here. So, you know, really, really dangerous one here for all of everyone out here at the end of rush hour.
Yeah, and let's remind our viewers that this reckless driving pursuit, that's all we know right now. Okay, it looks like they might be trying to make an exit, Desmond, possibly. Of course, we've seen this before.
Let's see.
There we go.
Yeah, very common tactic here from some of these suspects to try to get over to the right-hand side like they're going to exit, and then they dart out into, you know, other lanes at the last second, thinking that they're going to fool CHP. But you're not going to fool the helicopter on this one. So, and look at, okay, CHP pretty close behind now, getting in the carpool lane. Now that we have a carpool lane here for traffic to use. So we are through the 10, and then we're going to be right through the 60 here shortly at Valley Boulevard. So we're in the South El Monte area. This will take us down towards Whittier and beyond. We'll see if there's any traffic volume up ahead on the southbound 605. There definitely can be in afternoon rush hour, but we're, you know, kind of at the tail end of that. And it's also a Tuesday, typically the lightest traffic day of the week. So as also often happens, I think traffic is going to end up cooperating for this suspect. Although this suspect letting us know that it doesn't matter if traffic cooperates or not, because they're going to go to the center divider or the right-hand shoulder if they have to try to evade authorities.
Yeah, it certainly feels that way. Let's bring in Mike Rogers at the desk now. And boy, you know, we have seen some very unusual chases and tactics by law enforcement over the last couple of days. We've seen spike strips thrown actually on a freeway, which is a rarity. You don't see that very often. But with the speeds that this driver is going, we also saw a car spin out yesterday because they were going so fast on an off-ramp.
Right, and Pat, I'm getting new information right now. The dispatchers over at CHP relaying information to their officers. Not only was this guy wanted for reckless driving, it sounds like they were finally able to run the plate. Assault with a deadly weapon, robbery. This guy apparently has a very long list of criminal history, according to the California Highway Patrol. Now relaying that information. And, you know, Pat, I had kind of wondered why, you know, just reckless driving, why were they kind of, you know, letting this go the way they are? And now we know that this person's also wanted for much more serious crimes than just reckless driving. But, you know, you're right. And, you know, we're talking about these pursuits that are putting people's lives in danger. And we're on a freeway where, you know, it's not packed, but it's open enough to where he's able to reach really, really high speeds. And it just takes one miscalculation by the driver to make things go terribly wrong. Yeah,
or even a piece of gravel on the road, on the highway, just about anything. And the way that this person is going in and out of traffic, as you said, you wonder just how much they could be thinking, considering the charges, or let's say what this person has outstanding warrants. I would imagine that's where they're getting that information from. But, you know, it's generally, it doesn't end well, and they usually get caught. So Desmond, just wondering now what could possibly be what happens next here. They're on the 605. What's the next freeway or interchange that they're coming up on?
We've got a little ways before we make it down towards the 5 and then the 105 and the 91. So lots of connections for this suspect depending on what they want to do. And as far as, you know, what CHP going to do, you know, best they can do is stay in tow, keep that helicopter overhead. And, you know, if this is someone they really want, and from what Mike was telling me, all indications are this is someone they really want to get off of the streets, you know, they're going to need to stay in pretty close proximity because, you know, look what happened with that pursuit yesterday where you had that desperate suspect got out and ran. And, you know, they took a pretty dangerous shortcut to evade the authorities. But because of that, you know, and there was no one there to get it into a foot chase with the suspect, it turned into an hours-long standoff. And, you know, there was some concern even that suspect could have gotten away at one point. So they're going to want to stay in proximity on the ground if possible. Definitely keep those eyes from the sky, you know, because if they get out and run under some trees, some tall buildings, a parking structure, something like that, that's a, you know, huge vulnerability to the chopper. And you can see CHP, even with these really high speeds, they have been pretty close. In pursuit. There's actually 2 units now behind this one as we're over towards the far right-hand lane here at Whittier Boulevard.
Wow, and look at that. You know, it just makes me wonder. We didn't say stolen vehicle. They've run the plates, so they apparently even probably have an address on this person.
Right, and Pat, I want to clarify something when I told you about that information earlier. To be clear, he's not wanted on those crimes that I listed. He has a history of those crimes. So when they ran the license plate, the registered owner of that plate comes back with several of these theft convictions, robbery, felon in possession of body armor, assault with a deadly weapon. That's his criminal history. So we don't know if he has active warrants on any of those things now, but they were given that information as like, hey, use caution. This guy is not new to the system, and this is something that you're dealing with this guy. But yeah, I mean, he is, you know, not wanting to give up at this point, Pat.
And, you know, the fact, Mike and Des, even though he's not necessarily wanted for commission of those crimes mentioned or felonies, so to speak, you still want this person off the street considering how he's driving because he's putting other people at risk, including himself and, you know, law enforcement.
And that's the whole reason they tried to stop him to begin with was, you know, they saw him coming down the 15 freeway driving crazy like this. They got behind him, and here we are.
Des, is he, I don't want to say calm down, but maybe that is a good word to use here. It looks like he's slowing down a bit. Or is that because of traffic?
Yeah, well, yeah, maybe a little bit of both. I mean, the carpool lane is pretty open right now. A little bit of residual afternoon traffic volume on the southbound 5 as you approach the 605. So, you know, at the very least, we're not going 100 miles an hour with cars going, you know, a third of that. It would just it amplifies the danger there. A little bit of stop traffic. This should last down through, I believe, it'll probably through the 105. And by the time we're at the 91, things will pretty much have opened up at that point. So we'll see where the suspect's headed. I mean, we've already covered so much ground, and we are in a, you know, decently capable vehicle here. One of my BMW friends texted me, letting me know, clarifying this is a 1 Series. Wasn't sure if it was a 1 or a 2. This is a BMW 1 Series. So even though it's, you know, on kind of the bottom of the BMW food chain, still a very adept vehicle. You know, definitely excellent handling, pretty decent horsepower, pretty good acceleration as we've seen, and a pretty light and nimble car as well. And what do you know? We've got the pursuit tints to go along with all that. Again, the super dark blacked out windows here, which, you know, another factor that law enforcement absolutely despises in these pursuits.
No, I can imagine that. And I'm listening to you describe the vehicle. Certainly not one that you would think deserves that kind of wear and tear that it's getting right now on our freeways, that's for sure. We're hoping, or he's picking up just a little more speed again. When Desmond Shaw was over this in the very beginning, right before we went on the air, in fact, Desmond was flying overhead in Sky Cal, and we understand this guy was driving over 100 miles an hour, very recklessly in and out of traffic on the southbound 15 in the Cajon Pass. And now he is in Los Angeles County on the 605 freeway. Is that heading southbound Daz? I know you mentioned that.
Yes, there's southbound, and there's the 5 freeway underneath. So we've now crossed the 5 as we are solidly into Norwalk now at this point. So next is the 105. Usually kind of the little shuffle here, South 605 between the 5 and the 105, maybe even down towards the 91. And this will take us, if they're going to continue on this trajectory, down towards Seal Beach and Orange County. It would be interesting to see if Orange County CHP got involved in this one. We've certainly seen some aggressive pursuits from Orange County in the past. So, boy, just a lot of ground covered in a pretty short amount of time, just by virtue of how fast this driver has been taking this 1 Series BMW.
Well, he seems to be staying in that lane. Well, as soon as I said that, then he moves out. But, you know, he was hugging the center for such a long time, going in and out of traffic. So just wondering, sometimes you try to get into the minds of these people that are behind the wheel, wondering what they could be thinking. Possibly the reason why he was slowing down and driving at a more, you know, reputable speed. But now he seems to be putting on the gas again. And since you've been overhead, Des, he hasn't made any exit off the freeway, right? It's always been on freeway.
That's right. It's been all freeway all the time. To my knowledge, even when this was out in the Inland Empire, it's just all been on the freeway at this point. So, you know, what is the ultimate destination of this vehicle? And, you know, what's the gas situation in this car as well? Because we have covered so much ground at such a high speed, you know. And, well, look at that. Speak of the devil, Pat. Now we're getting off here. So this will take us, I believe, to Rosecrans Avenue. And we'll see where the suspect's going to go from there. There's CHP not too far behind. Indeed, we will be getting off of the freeway right here. No, that was not a stop sign. He did have the right-of-way right there. But now things could, well, let's see how dangerous this gets now that we are down on surface streets.
Yeah, he's running into traffic. I almost thought he was going to stop right there, but see how he navigates through these cars ahead of him. So the left turn lane, he does make that left.
Rosecrans. There was CHP's helicopter that went through our shot, and okay, right back on the freeway. So it seems that this this person definitely wants to stay on the freeway. I mean, they had to. I mean, it sounds like from what Mike was saying, it's not this person's first rodeo. So they probably had some kind of idea that CHP had a much better chance to bring this to an end on surface streets than they do on the freeway. And so now we're just right back on. Really, really quick diversion there. Back up to 85, 90 miles an hour, and we will be headed towards the 91 freeway next.
You know, when you listed those charges that this person was already convicted, it's like, okay, so now you're out and you're going to rack up some more charges with this pursuit.
Yeah, and I mean, not only rack up the charges, but anything that happens during this pursuit, enhancements could be added because he is a convicted felon. That's one of the charges that he was already convicted of was, according to the CHP radio traffic I was listening to, was felon in possession of body armor, which is not something that felons are allowed to possess. So, you know, depending on the terms of, is he on parole? Is he on probation? You know, all of that. So, you know, I was just sitting here thinking, Pat, technically the want is just reckless driving, but CHP's not letting this go, and that's likely because once they get their hands on him, there could be more things that he ended up being wanted for, and then they'll be able to determine that. So, you know, and the bad news about running from CHP is they're a statewide agency, and we have gone through San Bernardino's office, Rancho Cucamonga, Baldwin Park, East LA, and they'll just keep swapping out those officers throughout the entire state. So they're not going to get tired of chasing them, and they've got the resources to do it.
And now he's on the 91 freeway, westbound, Desmond.
That's right. Yeah, so we did make that connection here. Westbound 91 away from the 605, headed through Bellflower and towards Compton and beyond. This will end onto Artesia Boulevard before it reaches the 405. So a couple of junctions up ahead, but seems really committed to stay to the freeway the whole time. Just kind of curious about that very quick diversion getting off the freeway at Rosecrans, but decided to keep with it here. Still at 90 miles an hour, and this is going to be the lighter side of traffic in the day. Westbound on the 91, eastbound would have a much higher chance of encountering some stop-and-go traffic, but west of the 605, westbound 91 is pretty easygoing as far as traffic goes for this suspect. Cutting over at the last second there, could have gotten off the freeway. Clark decided not to, so kind of zigging, zagging all over the place.
And you know, lately we have seen pursuits with, I don't want to say a car full, but yeah, I guess that would be correct. Several suspects
Right.
in a car. Now, we've only heard about this driver, is that right?
Yeah, so CHP was able to confirm with their units that there is only one person in the car. So that does help them, that they're not going to have to deal with people scattering, once this comes to an end.
And right now, still just CHP.
Yep.
Overhead and on the ground. We wonder if there was, I believe you mentioned Ontario a moment ago, Desmond, that they could have been involved in this, or they were.
It was their helicopter that was lending
Okay.
a hand. I think they were probably the closest helicopter in the vicinity back when we were in the Inland Empire to hand off on this. And then, I'm sure they were making arrangements to get CHP's helicopter involved as soon as they could. And so once they were there, they have relieved them. And we saw CHP go through our shot a little bit ago when they got off the freeway based out of Fullerton Airport. Sometimes they get their fixed wing overhead as well. I do not believe that is the case right now. I believe it is just their helicopter down low. But likely to stay, despite, even if we get off the freeway, I would say it's likely to stay CHP that's going to be in pursuit of this from end to end. So it seems like they are pretty determined to take this all the way to the end here as we continue to truck along here at just about 100 miles an hour, carpool lane, westbound 91 with this little BMW.
And I imagine with those charges that we talked about, or the convictions, that's another reason. You may have stated that earlier, Desmond, that they would probably stay with this, because while it is reckless driving with all those convictions, you just never know what else this person, could even have in the.
It's really difficult, especially as he keeps transitioning. Now we're getting onto the southbound 710 here. So now we're off the 105, off the 91, onto the southbound 710 here. Again, once again, over the Gore Point, a new primary officer taking over that lead position there. You saw they had that Baldwin Park SUV behind him, and now a primary challenger right behind him taking over as they start to do that dance, handing this off to various CHP stations in the region here as he continues southbound 710 freeway at 90 miles per hour with a lot more traffic. As he weaves around here, you start to really hold your breath, because the way he's weaving around at these speeds, this is where it could get very, very dangerous. Not that it hasn't been this whole time, but you certainly just hope that he doesn't make one wrong move.
Oh.
Our car enthusiast who is directing the show, Mike Gilbert, is telling me that's a BMW 135i. It's turbocharged, 6 cylinders, so it can really go, and we're actually witnessing that as this guy desperately tries to evade the CHP officers behind him. Keep in mind, I think, Chris, we probably would have seen them pull off of this one because it's become so dangerous, but it shows the level of suspect that they're dealing with. This is a guy that could be involved with armed robberies. He could be armed right now as we speak. There's also rumors that he could have body armor on. Plus, you add that to the tinted windows, the high speeds. This is a dangerous man, clearly, and they're taking it very seriously.
That's right, and there's no way to know, at least for us at this point, to know whether that car actually belongs to him. So if it's a stolen car, which we don't know if that is, we haven't heard that, but if it's not his car, there is no way to track him. If they were to let it go, they'd be relying completely on the air unit for as long as the air unit can stay in the air with fuel. And so that's not something they're willing to take a chance on just yet. If they can keep up with him, they're going to do that, especially as he encounters more traffic here. He is considered armed and dangerous, and that is giving them even more justification, as you talked about, to keep the pressure on and stay on his tail. There's that CHP helicopter right overhead there as he continues. Now slowing down again. Traffic bunching up here as we approach the 405 freeway, and looks like he's taking it. He's taking the 405. He could still go over that Gore Point, but looks like he's now committed. Now committed to the 405 freeway, and if I'm not mistaken, that will be the westbound transition on the 405. Double check that. Yes. Yeah, it looks like the westbound side of the 405 is getting on here.
Yeah, and you can see that CHP so close behind him as well. But then you can see the box truck kind of moving over and letting him to get over. But again, this is always catches everybody off guard when you see a car driving this quickly and then the CHP right behind you. But again, we're sort of limited on our viewing to see exactly which part of this 405 he's right there.
Southbound
or if he's
710 still?
It looks Looks like it does say that, Chris, when you just said southbound 710, it's Sky Map.
Yeah, he was going towards the 405, and then he just used that connector to get right back on. So he's slowing himself down here. It gives you the impression that he may not be quite familiar with the freeways, at least as much as we thought he was. He seems to be maybe getting a little bit lost here because he's just using these connectors to get right back off, and now he's getting off. Now he's getting off. This is going to put him onto the eastbound, I believe the southbound side of the 405, which technically goes eastbound here. No, that's not the 405. That's not the 405 at all. That's going to be, what is that? That is Wardlow Road. Wardlow Road, he's going eastbound Wardlow, getting off of the freeway, and now things get real because CHP has a real decision to make here, and I presume I should say, that they are going to continue, but we'll see what the driving is like here. Now that he's getting off of the freeway, he is really giving these officers a run for their money, but they were able to make the transition with him, at least some of them were. We'll pull back just a little bit once we can to see if we can see how far that closest unit, look at him right behind him. Right behind him is that primary unit, a secondary unit, a supervisor behind them, and there's that chippy. So 4 units right behind him as he comes up on a red light, right through the red light, making a right turn there, southbound Pacific Place off of Wardlow, and now, like I said, this is going to become a much different game now that he is off the freeway.
Yeah, and at what point, Chris, does it, we know that the CHP is obviously has jurisdiction over it on the freeway, but at what point do they start jockeying for which law enforcement agency sort of starts taking the lead in this, or does the CHP ask the local law enforcement to try to block some of these areas or try to make their presence known?
It's a great question, and the short answer is never. CHP is very territorial over their pursuits, and it is very rare, unless it turns into a foot pursuit and they need perimeter set up and areas cordoned off, then they will ask for assistance. But when CHP is chasing a suspect, it is their game. They will invite other CHP officers who are available to join the pursuit and help out however they can, but they very rarely, extremely rare, to see them mingle with other agencies unless it's really a need for mutual aid, and that is very, very rare. And you can see him blowing through red lights here. Another wild left turn there onto Willow, another red light here through Earl. No cross traffic there, but you can see them actually going through the red lights with him. Again, those same units maintaining pressure here, not even backing off at all. They are right behind him again, as you mentioned, and as Mike so expertly said, this car is capable of speeds much faster than we have seen thus far in this pursuit. So it looks like he's now on Long Beach Boulevard, a right southbound turn onto Long Beach Boulevard. This will take him this is worrying because this will take him right into downtown Long Beach. So on a busy night like tonight, you can imagine that the further south we get, the closer we get to downtown Long Beach, you will start to see some of those restaurants and shops and people crossing the street. Thankfully, he's getting off of Long Beach now onto Hill, which is a residential street just north of downtown Long Beach. And now we have to wonder if he had intentions of making his way and bringing the CHP down here. Is he familiar with this area? Does he reside down here? Questions that we don't know the answers to, but is this random or is this intentional? That's what we're looking for now. If he starts to go around and around, that'll give them an opportunity for spike strips, but right now he seems to be making a lot of random turns, like I said, just randomly.
He made some distance on that turn there. The CHP is still behind him, but they've dropped back just a bit. And now he goes right. But boy, some really aggressive driving, even going into oncoming traffic or on the oncoming lane, at least really cutting these corners pretty tight. But either they're letting him get some distance and trying to back off a little, or he's truly doing it on his own with that car.
He's zigzagging. He is literally zigzagging his way through here. That's a tactic to try and lose those officers. They're going to continue. Again, they know where he's making those turns because of the helicopter. They just can't go at the same speed he's going down residential streets. They have to slow down a little bit, but they know where they have to make the turns. They know where he is, and so they're going to continue as best they can to keep up with him. But 90 miles per hour down MLK Jr. here on a surface street. Very, very concerning. This is a very concerning situation. Comes to a full stop. Here comes the driver. No other passengers, just the driver jumping out of the vehicle. He is now on foot looking, okay, look at this. Is this a stranger's home or does he know this person? Nope, he is certainly making this up now. Is he going to try? What's he doing here? What is he doing? Okay, hands up, giving himself up. Giving himself up. He sees CHP. They're going to make communication here. Guns drawn. Officers with their guns drawn. CHP troopers aim squarely at that suspect, now proning himself out, following orders as they approach him and attempt to make a felony arrest here. You can see that Chippy standing by right there. He is not going to put up a fight, and this pursuit coming to as safe of a possible resolution as you could have possibly imagined. It really couldn't end any better than this, because that was very, very scary when you consider the speeds he was going.
Yeah, that came to a very fast ending, and look at this. You know, the youngsters with their cell phones have to get a little shot of this, but part of the danger of these pursuits, if he would have continued on in this neighborhood at that high rate of speed, there are pedestrians, there are kids out, no school tomorrow, etc. A lot of danger zones. We are so lucky that this guy decided to get smart, even though truly that wasn't his intention in the beginning, but when he found that he had nowhere to go, he did give up, and he gave up without a fight. So thankful there. Nobody was hit, no injuries that we know of.
No.
Colleen, this
it's
is
worth reiterating, for the second time this week, we have seen the California Highway Patrol apply tremendous pressure on yet another suspect running from the law at high speeds, very dangerous maneuvers, and yet they were still able to keep up with him. And not only were they able to keep up with him, they were willing to give those officers the authority to continue the pursuit, to bring this person into custody as safely as they possibly could. It is so interesting when you cover these pursuits for a living to see the various tactics change over time with different agencies in our area, different municipalities, and different law enforcement. Different law enforcement outlets have different tactics, and CHP, especially lately, has certainly been compensating with very, very aggressive tactics.
Yeah, I was with you the other night on Friday night when we watched that last pursuit. It seemed very similar, this ending. They were right there to take him into custody, and of course, a very peaceful, exactly what we want ending to this police pursuit. Of course, we're going to stay on top of this if there's any new developments, but Eyewitness News at 7 is coming up next.
Right here. KCAL, Los Angeles. All right, folks, have a good one.